A tragic and mysterious event unfolded in the skies over the North Sound when a Bering Air aircraft, carrying 10 passengers, disappeared from radar. The small plane, traveling over Alaska's rugged and often unpredictable terrain, was last heard from late in the afternoon, sparking a massive search effort that continued through the night. Despite the challenging conditions, the search and rescue teams, including local authorities, U.S. Coast Guard, and volunteers, worked tirelessly in hopes of finding survivors. However, the search took a heartbreaking turn when the wreckage of the aircraft was discovered less than 24 hours later. There were no signs of life, and all 10 individuals on board were presumed dead. The flight had been a routine one, a commuter service connecting remote communities across Alaska's vast and inhospitable landscape. These flights, though essential, often face perilous conditions due to the weather and the difficult geography of the area. The plane, a twin-engine, small aircraft, had been en route from the western coastal town of Kotzebue, heading towards the town of Nome, both of which are isolated and often rely on air travel due to the lack of alternative transportation routes. The area where the plane disappeared is known for its unpredictable weather, with strong winds, low visibility, and frequent storms making it a challenging region for aviation. The missing aircraft had been part of Bering Air's fleet, a regional carrier that provides vital services to remote areas of Alaska. These planes often fly in areas where larger commercial aircraft are unable to operate due to the lack of infrastructure. Bering Air, known for its fleet of small aircraft, has been a lifeline to the communities it serves. The company has been lauded for its safety standards, but flying in Alaska's remote and harsh environment presents inherent risks, no matter how cautious or experienced the crew may be. The passengers on board were a mix of locals and visitors. Some were traveling for business, others for personal reasons, and a few were family members visiting relatives in nearby towns. The community that relies on air travel in this region is small, and the loss of such a large number of individuals has left a deep wound. The identities of the passengers, while initially withheld, were later revealed to be a mix of ages, occupations, and backgrounds. Among the victims were several community leaders, who had been returning home after business in Kotzebue. The loss was felt immediately, with memorials and gatherings being planned in both the town of Kotzebue and Nome to honor the deceased. As the wreckage of the aircraft was discovered, the details of the crash began to surface. The investigation is still ongoing, but early reports suggest that the plane may have encountered extreme weather conditions before it went down. There were no distress calls or emergency signals received from the plane before its disappearance. The absence of any indication of trouble raised the concern that the aircraft could have faced an unexpected and swift crisis, perhaps a mechanical failure or a sudden weather change, which could have made it impossible for the crew to respond in time. The search efforts were hampered by the rough terrain and the remote nature of the crash site. Teams had to navigate difficult conditions to reach the wreckage, which was found in a remote, snow-covered area. The Coast Guard's role in the search was crucial, as their assets allowed them to cover the vast area of ocean and coastline along the North Sound. However, despite their swift and thorough efforts, the wreckage found was unmistakably that of the missing aircraft, and the discovery confirmed the worst fears of those awaiting news. In the days following the crash, investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, arrived in the area to begin their work. They faced the daunting task of determining what went wrong in an area where access is limited, and evidence can be hard to recover. The NTSB, in partnership with Bering Air and local aviation experts, began sifting through the wreckage to piece together what might have led to the tragic incident. Initial findings suggested that the plane may have experienced an in-flight emergency, but it was too soon to determine whether this was caused by mechanical failure, weather, or another factor. The investigation brought attention to the ongoing challenges of flying in Alaska, a state that is no stranger to aviation accidents due to its harsh environment and often treacherous flying conditions. Alaska has one of the highest rates of aviation accidents in the United States, and this crash underscores the risks faced by those who live in and travel through the region. Pilots and passengers alike know the dangers, but air travel remains an essential part of life for those in remote areas. Alaska's vastness and isolation mean that alternatives such as roads or railways are not viable for many residents, making aviation the only practical option for getting from one place to another. The crash prompted renewed discussions about aviation safety, particularly in remote regions. While Bering Air has a strong safety record, the challenges of flying in the Alaskan wilderness remain formidable. Pilots must constantly navigate difficult weather patterns, low visibility, and a lack of emergency landing spots. In addition, Many small aircraft are not equipped with advanced weather tracking or other technologies that could potentially save lives in the event of a crisis. The loss of life in this particular crash sparked calls for better technology and equipment to assist pilots in navigating these dangerous skies. As the families of those lost in the crash mourn their loved ones, the tight-knit Alaskan communities continue to process the tragedy. Alaska, with its sparse population and vast, rugged landscape, is a place where everyone knows each other, and the loss of so many at once has reverberated across the entire region. In many ways, this crash has affected not just those who were on the plane, but entire communities that depend on the very same air services that can, in moments of tragedy, prove to be so perilous. In the aftermath of the crash, there have been numerous tributes to the victims. Memorial services have been held, with friends, family, and the broader Alaskan community coming together to honor the lives lost. Many spoke of the warmth and dedication of the passengers, some of whom were well-known figures in the local communities, with strong ties to the places they called home. Their contributions to the towns they served will not be forgotten, and their sudden loss leaves a significant gap in the close-knit social fabric of Alaska. The investigation continues, and while answers may take time, the people of Alaska are left to mourn, reflect, and pay tribute to those who perished in the crash. It is a reminder of the risks inherent in everyday life in the state, where the landscape is as beautiful as it is dangerous. Despite the harsh conditions, the residents of Alaska remain resilient, determined to honor those lost and support one another through this unimaginable tragedy. This event serves as a stark reminder of the dangers that those in the aviation industry face, especially in remote areas where weather can change without warning and where access to help is often limited. As the investigation unfolds, there will undoubtedly be calls for changes in aviation safety protocols, and perhaps new technology will be implemented to help mitigate the risks.